I sat at the glossy mahogany table of my family's annual reunion dinner, watching my sister Olivia hold court. As usual, she commanded everyone's attention, dressed in an outfit that probably cost more than most people's monthly salary. The crystal chandeliers of the country club's private dining room cast a warm glow over the gathering, but I felt cold inside. And then, Olivia gestured dramatically with her wine glass. The CEO personally thanked me for saving the Anderson account, promoted me on the spot to Senior Vice President of Client Relations. She paused for effect, soaking in the admiring gasps from our assembled relatives. I took another sip of water, fighting the urge to check my phone. The messaging app was probably exploding with updates about tomorrow's major executive interviews at Horizon Enterprises. As founder and CEO, I should be reviewing candidates, but family obligations came first, even if my family had no idea who I really was. Speaking of careers, my mother's voice cut through my thoughts. "Sophia dear, are you still doing that? What was it again? Freelance work?" The way she said freelance made it sound like I was selling magazine subscriptions door to door. If only she knew that my freelance work was a cover for running one of the fastest growing tech companies in the country. "Yes, Mom, still freelancing." I kept my voice neutral, remembering the stack of acquisition paperwork waiting on my desk. Tomorrow would be interesting, to say the least. Olivia's perfectly manicured hand reached across the table to pat mine in mock sympathy. "Oh, Sophia, still haven't found your path? You know, there might be an entry-level position opening up in my department. I could put in a good word." I had to bite my tongue to keep from laughing. The entry-level position she was talking about was at Maxwell Communications, the company Horizon Enterprises was about to acquire. The same company where Olivia had her coveted senior VP role. The same company where she'd be interviewing tomorrow. "At my company." "That's so kind of you." I managed my voice steady. "But I'm comfortable where I am." My father shook his head, not bothering to hide his disappointment. "Sophia, you had such potential. Top of your class at Harvard Business School. Offers from all the major consulting firms. And now look at you, 32 and still finding yourself while your sister is breaking glass ceilings." The irony was almost too much. Last month, Forbes had named me one of the 40 under 40 most influential business leaders. The article had used my preferred press photo, one where I was turned away from the camera, my face obscured. Very few people knew what the reclusive founder of Horizon Enterprises looked like. It was exactly how I wanted it. "Remember when we were kids?" Olivia's voice dripped with false nostalgia. "You always said you'd run your own company someday. How's that dream working out?" "Better than you could possibly imagine," I thought. My Aunt Eleanor jumped in, ever helpful. "You know, I have a friend who runs a small bookkeeping service. Maybe she could use some help with data entry." "Thanks, Aunt Eleanor." I pushed my barely touched dessert aside. "But I'm doing fine." "Fine?" Olivia scoffed. "Sophia, you live in a tiny apartment, drive a used car, and from what I can tell, barely make ends meet. Meanwhile, I just closed the biggest deal in Maxwell's history. The merger announcement is tomorrow. It's going to transform the company." If she only knew. The merger she was so proud of was actually a carefully orchestrated takeover. Maxwell Communications had been struggling for years, hemorrhaging money and losing market share. My team at Horizon had been quietly buying up shares through various shell companies for months. Tomorrow's announcement wouldn't be about a merger, it would be about an acquisition. And Olivia's biggest deal was actually negotiated by her assistant, while she took credit for the work. I knew because I'd seen all the paperwork, watched all the meetings through video calls where no one knew who I really was. "That's wonderful, Olivia," I said quietly. "I'm sure tomorrow will be quite transformative." She missed my meaning completely, raising her glass in a self-congratulatory toast. "To success." Something some of us will never understand. Our mother beamed at her while our father nodded approvingly. The perfect daughter with the perfect career, the family success story. My phone buzzed in my pocket, probably another update about tomorrow's interviews. I'd insisted on personally meeting all Maxwell's senior executives to determine who would stay after the acquisition. Olivia's interview was scheduled for 9 a.m. sharp. "Excuse me," I said, standing up. "I need to take this call." "Oh, honey," my mother sighed. "Don't tell me you're still doing those late-night customer service jobs." I stepped away from the table, finding a quiet corner of the country club's elegant hallway. My assistant's text confirmed everything was set for tomorrow. The conference room was prepared, security was briefed, and all the paperwork was in order. Looking back at my family through the dining room's open doors, I allowed myself a small smile. They had no idea that the family failure they dismissed for so long was about to turn their world upside down. Tomorrow, Olivia would walk into Horizon Enterprises headquarters expecting to discuss her role in the merger. Instead, she'd come face to face with the truth. Her little sister, the supposed failure, was actually her new boss. I checked my watch, 14 hours until the meeting. 14 hours until everything changed. Returning to the table, I found Olivia still holding court, regaling everyone with stories of her corporate triumphs. You know, she said as I sat down, success is about seizing opportunities. Some people just don't have what it takes. You're absolutely right, I replied, allowing myself a cryptic smile. Tomorrow's going to be very interesting. She raised an eyebrow. Oh, finally considering my offer for that entry-level position. Something like that. I raised my water glass. To new beginnings. The crystal chandeliers continued to sparkle overhead, casting shadows that danced across the table like secrets waiting to be revealed. In less than a day, my family would learn that success comes in many forms, and sometimes the quietest person in the room is actually the most powerful. As I drove home that night, leaving behind the echoes of Olivia's condescending laughter and my parents' thinly veiled disappointment, I felt a strange mix of emotions. Tomorrow would change everything, not just for my family, but for the hundreds of employees at Maxwell Communications who deserve better leadership than they'd had. I parked my old car, actually a carefully chosen vintage Porsche, in the garage of my tiny apartment, the penthouse of the city's most exclusive building, and prepared for what would likely be a sleepless night. The papers spread across my desk told the story my family had never bothered to learn. How I'd built Horizon Enterprises from the ground up, turning it into a technology and communications powerhouse while maintaining my anonymity. Tomorrow, the mask would finally come off. Tomorrow, they'd learn that the daughter they dismissed as a failure had quietly built an empire. I wondered if Olivia had picked out her power suit yet for the interview. I wondered if she'd practiced her signature, "I'm the most qualified person in the room" smile. I wondered how that smile would fade when she realized who really held the power. But mostly, I wondered if after everything, they'd finally understand that success isn't about appearances or titles or bragging rights at family reunions. Sometimes it's about quietly building something extraordinary while everyone else is too busy showing off to notice. The next morning, I stood in my private elevator at Horizon Enterprises headquarters, watching the city wake up through the glass walls. My reflection showed someone very different from the failure my family knew. A woman in a perfectly tailored Armani suit, radiating quiet confidence. "Good morning, Ms. Chen," my executive assistant Marcus greeted me as I stepped onto the top floor. "The Maxwell Communications executives are waiting in the main conference room. Your sister arrived 15 minutes early." Of course she did. Olivia always had to be first, had to appear the most eager, the most prepared. "How many times has she mentioned her senior VP title?" I asked, unable to resist. Marcus checked his tablet, lips twitching. 7 times in the first 10 minutes. She also made sure everyone knew about the Anderson account. I smoothed my jacket, checking my appearance one final time in the brushed steel walls. "And our security team?" "In position. All phones and recording devices have been collected, as per standard protocol for acquisition meetings. The official paperwork is ready." I nodded, taking a deep breath. Let's not keep them waiting any longer. The main conference room at Horizon was designed to impress, with floor-to-ceiling windows offering a commanding view of the city skyline. As I approached, I could hear Olivia's voice through the partially open door. "Really, it's quite remarkable how quickly I've risen through the ranks," she was saying. "Natural leadership ability, I suppose. I'm sure whoever runs Horizon will recognize that immediately." I pushed open the door. The room fell silent. Olivia, halfway through what was undoubtedly another self-congratulatory speech, froze mid-gesture. Her perfect composure cracked as confusion, then disbelief washed over her face. "Sophia," she stammered. "What? What are you doing here?" I walked calmly to the head of the table, setting my briefcase down with a quiet click that seemed to echo in the stunned silence. "Good morning, everyone. I apologize for the delay. Shall we begin?" I kept my voice professional, nodding to Marcus, who began distributing folders to the assembled executives. There must be some mistake, Olivia interrupted, her voice rising. This is a private meeting. We're here to meet with Horizon's CEO about the merger. Yes, you are. I sat down, opening my own copy of the acquisition agreement. Sophia Chen, founder and CEO of Horizon Enterprises. Now about that merger. The silence that followed was absolute. Olivia had gone pale, her designer dress suddenly seeming like a child's costume. The other Maxwell executives were frantically flipping through their folders, their earlier dismissive attitudes evaporating as they realized who I was. This is impossible, Olivia finally managed. You're just a freelancer. You live in a tiny apartment. That apartment is the penthouse of the Archer building, which Horizon owns, I corrected her calmly. As for being just a freelancer, sometimes, Olivia, success doesn't need to be announced at every family dinner. I stood up, clicking through presentation slides that detailed exactly how Horizon had systematically acquired controlling interest in Maxwell Communications over the past year. Let me be clear about what's happening here. This isn't a merger. It's an acquisition. Horizon Enterprises now owns 51% of Maxwell's shares, purchased through various subsidiary companies over the past 12 months. Olivia's face had shifted from shock to anger. You did this deliberately. You let me sit there last night bragging about the merger while I knew that your biggest deal was actually negotiated by your assistant? I raised an eyebrow. Yes, I did. Just like I've known about the Anderson account, how you took credit for your team's work while spending most of your time at charity luncheons. The other executives shifted uncomfortably. They'd all known the truth about Olivia's leadership style, but no one had dared to speak up. As of 9 a.m. this morning, I continued, Maxwell Communications is a subsidiary of Horizon Enterprises. We'll be implementing immediate changes in the executive structure. Olivia stood up so quickly her chair rolled backward. You can't do this. I'm Senior Vice President of Client Relations. I've built relationships, made connections. Your position is being eliminated, I cut in smoothly, along with several other redundant executive roles. However, I turned to address the rest of the room. Most employees below the executive level will be retained. Horizon believes in recognizing actual talent and hard work. The next hour was a blur of signatures, legal requirements, and shocked silences. One by one, the Maxwell executives filed out, leaving me alone with my sister. Olivia stood by the window, her perfect composure completely shattered. Why? She whispered. Why didn't you ever tell us? I gathered my papers slowly, considering my answer. Would you have believed me? When have you ever believed I could accomplish anything significant? She turned to face me, tears smearing her expensive mascara. All these years, at every family dinner, every holiday. Every time you mocked my career choices, every time you offered me an entry-level position as if you were doing me a favor. I closed my briefcase with a decisive click. Consider this a lesson in humility, Olivia. Success isn't about who can brag the loudest at family reunions. Mom and Dad, she started. We'll find out soon enough. The press release goes out at noon. As if on cue, my phone buzzed, my parents' number flashing on the screen. Olivia's phone had probably been blowing up too, once it was returned to her after the meeting. I answered on speaker. Hello, Mom. Sophia. Her voice was shrill with disbelief. Tell me this isn't true. Tell me you haven't been lying to us all these years. I never lied, I replied calmly. You just never asked the right questions. You were too busy celebrating Olivia's achievements to notice mine. But all those times we offered to help you find a real job. I was building a billion-dollar company. I allowed myself a small smile. Though I admit, watching Olivia offer me entry-level positions at a company I was about to acquire, that was rather entertaining. The line went silent for a long moment. Finally, my father's voice came through, heavy with something that sounded like regret. Why keep it a secret for so long? I looked at Olivia, still standing shell-shocked by the window, then back at the phone. Because I wanted to succeed on my own terms. Not for family approval, not for bragging rights at reunions, but for myself. After ending the call, I gathered my things to leave. At the door, I paused and turned back to Olivia. Oh, and about that entry-level position you offered last night, I think you might be needing it yourself soon. Feel free to submit your resume to HR. The next family reunion was different. Gone were the condescending comments about my career choices. Instead, relatives who had once dismissed me as a failure now hung on my every word. Olivia was notably absent. She'd taken a job at a smaller firm, reportedly showing a new appreciation for humility and hard work. My parents struggled to reconcile their image of their unsuccessful daughter with the powerful CEO I'd become. They alternated between excessive pride and obvious discomfort, especially when friends asked why they'd never mentioned their daughter ran Horizon Enterprises. As for me, I finally moved into a bigger office, one with my name on the building. Sometimes, when I work late, I can see my old tiny apartment from my window. It reminds me that success isn't always visible on the surface, and the quietest person in the room might just be the most powerful. The biggest change, though, wasn't in how others saw me. It was in how I saw myself. I no longer felt the need to prove anything to anyone. My success wasn't about showing up my family or getting revenge. It was about building something meaningful, something that would last. Now when people ask about my path to success, I tell them the truth. Sometimes the best revenge isn't about getting even. It's about rising above. And sometimes the person everyone underestimates turns out to be the one they should have feared all along.